live podcast recording with Mr. Casey McCoy. And we are here chatting with Casey to talk about a number of things. We'll talk about real estate, we'll talk about personal growth, and we'll talk about personal development, a variety of things. But one thing that we really wanted to focus on is how Casey and his family's life has transformed since going to and since getting involved with the One Life community over the last several years. And I'll have him share kind of the story of how it happened, but he's now gone on, he has his own real estate company, he's founding a bunch of different things, he's doing some facilitation and coaching, and it's just a lot of, I'm sure we'll get into it, but you mentioned before the call that your life has really transformed over the last several years. So Casey, thanks for hanging out with us today and spending some time with the One Life community.
Yeah, thanks for having it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a really interesting journey since I found One Life to today. So I'm super glad to get to share it with you guys.
Yes, it's awesome to have you, Casey. I remember, we met in the One Life Philly conference, and it's just life-changing. And it's interesting how quickly time flies. And the amount of I'm just excited for you to share the amount of growth you've experienced since then, and just kind of walk us through, because I love it. I love your energy. I love who you are as a person and what you stand for, and I just want to be able to share this with our community. So can you walk us through everything Casey McCoy?
Oh man, that's a lot to unpack. Well, I used to be a mascot in college, so we can start there.
Awesome. I love that. You're gonna have to post a photo of that.
Well, I was a few of them. It was actually like one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah, and it's
awesome.
Like in a super strange way. But yeah, I luckily for me, about 4 years ago, Mike McCarthy lost a bet, and he had to come to Evansville to teach a class, a Keller Williams class called 6 Personal Perspectives. And in that class, it talks about getting mentors and the importance of having mentors in your life. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him talk about mentors. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never had a mentor before, and I don't even know what that looks like. And he's like, and my wife's name's Lindsay. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my wife's name's Lindsay. and he's like, and I own a brewery. I'm like, I would love to drink beer at my own brewery. And so after the class, I had this feeling inside when I was sitting there in the class. And I'm like, you should ask this guy to be your mentor. And if I'm honest, when we were going through there, when I'm sitting in the class and I have that feeling inside, I was like, no. And I pushed it down.
Oh.
And I was like, I not right now. And then it wouldn't come out of my head. And so right after the class, I messaged him and I said, hey, you said we should get mentors. I think that, from your story, I really enjoyed listening to it, and I liked a lot of the stuff that you said, a lot of the path that you're on. Would you, do you mentor people, and what would that look like? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, well, how do I get you to be my mentor? He's like, ask me. It's like, okay. Will you be my mentor? It was kind of like asking out a girl for the first time. In an odd way, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, the man crush, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know how this is supposed to work or what. But so luckily for me, Mike then was kind enough and gracious enough to basically coach me for the next 5 or 6 months, maybe 6 or 7 months. It was a long time.
Wow.
And he finally was like, okay, well, hey, there's this One Life event coming up. You should come to it. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Mike says I do it, I do it. Actually, when I met Mike McCarthy, I think I was 387 pounds, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
I'm 6'4", so I'm a big guy anyway. So after chatting with Mike, he was like, drink smoothie, do he's like, do X, Y, and Z, bulletproof coffee. I'm like, okay, I'm just, I'm kind of just executing. And I got down to 300 pounds, but not too terribly long after that, maybe a year and a half.
Wow.
And so that kind of kickstarted the rest of everything. And from that day, then I get into the One Life community, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all these awesome people that feel the exact same way about life that I do, and they want more out of life. And it's like, the whole point of this journey is to see what we can do with what we have, with the gifts that we've been given, the hardships that we've been given. So let's go down that journey. Let's go down that path together. And if I have some people that think the same way that I do, then this is going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's how I got introduced to One Life. And
wow.
You can't be in the One Life community, I don't think, and be unhealthy. Like it's hard. It's really hard to be around everybody at One Life and be like, I'm going to go eat pizza. It's like, everybody is a vegetarian, or, it's like, well, probably I'll have salad.
Yes, everyone is leveling up their health and their wealth and their relationships in the One Life. And it's, dream it, plan it, live it, right? So tell me a bit of that experience. So you, Mike said, go to One Life. You showed up at One Life. Boom, you're in Philadelphia. There you are. And what's the sequence? So tell me about that, how that went, and then the sequence of events after.
Well, so at One Life, I'm like, I walk into this room and there's music and everybody's high-fiving me, and I'm like, this is the weirdest, best, coolest group of people I've ever met. And it's weird because, and I use that word on purpose, because it's not normal to show up in a place like that and feel like, holy cow, I can just be me. I don't have to be, me. I can be me. Whatever that looks like, whoever that is. It's like, everybody's being weird here. So I can definitely be weird, because that's my normal self, is just kind of weird and goofy.
I love it.
And so that was really my first, the first time that I really had any time set aside to go, wait a minute, what do I want my life to look like? What hours do I want to work? When do I want to work? Where do I want to actually do the work? Do I want to have to be in a physical location? Do I want to not have to be in a physical location? And kind of working backwards. I hear a lot of young people, and I talk to a ton of young people, and they're like, the question they get asked most is, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I just think it's the wrong question. It's like, what do you want your life to look like when you grow up? Do you want your life to look like what it has up until now? Do you want that to carry forward? Do you really enjoy going to school at 7:00 in the morning, or starting your day at 7:00 in the morning and being done at 2:30 or whatever time kids get done at school now? Do you want that to continue? And it was the first time that I realized that you could literally design what you want your life to look like, just like you would design a building, or just like you would redesign a building. It's like, I know that I could go in and I'm really good at going in and seeing the potential in a physical space. So I get that, and as soon as I saw that you could do that with your life, it was like the floodgates just opened. Because I've always been a big kind of visionary guy, and the minute that I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to only be big and visionary with our projects. I can do it with my life. Like, wow, this is different. Yeah. And it's taken a lot of, it's kind of interesting once you start designing your life. It's like, I think I want to do it this way. And then you're like, you know what? No, I don't want that way. like after you've done that way for a little while, I don't know about you. I just like rip it up and I'm like, we'll try something different.
Try something new. That's right. That's why you have a dry erase board.
I've never been really good at transitions. So it's like I just blow it all up and then I go over to this space.
There you go. I love that. And that is exactly it. The magic of dreaming it, planning it, and living it in one life. Mm-hmm. So tell me, so you love design and you love, you're in that real estate mindset. You get to one life and you're able to empower something that you already have, and then you get to use it in your personal life to design. So tell me, since attending One Life and the continuation of attending One Life, what are some things in your health, your wealth, and your relationships that you have seen be impacted?
It's a great question. I have to write it down so I stay somewhat on track. Otherwise, we'll just get all over the place. Well, I'll just start with health. So this, since the moment I was just talking about with Mike and him kind of helping me figure out what it is that path looks like for me, I hit a plateau for a couple of years of just, I hit right at 300, and I was at kind of hanging out in that 300-pound range for a couple of years. And it was kind of frustrating because I'm like, I eat pretty healthy, I eat junk, like everybody occasionally. But since the beginning of this year, my wife and I got together and we're like, okay, what do we want our food life to look like? And it's like, okay, well, if we want to be in the best physical existence of ourselves, the best physical version of ourselves, that person probably fuels themselves with really great plants and probably not a ton of meat, just from the research that we've done. So we went on this, we now eat plant-based, and we do include some meat in that. So my health, my goal of my health is to be able to do whatever it is that I want to do, whenever it is that I want to do it, with whomever it is that I want to do it with. So part of that is like Mike, by way of example, last year, he was like, hey, who wants to hike a 14er with me? I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I do. And I went out to Denver and hiked one, and it was probably the hardest, I felt the worst possible in my body at the top of the mountain when I was looking around, and I'm like, this is all very pretty, but also I might throw up. So,
but you did it.
I did. Yeah, I did it, and I didn't throw up. So that was great. But it was then that I was like, okay, I've been running a couple miles for about a year and a half. And at that point, it had been a year, and I'm like, okay, I'm in pretty good shape. And then it was during that trip that I realized, I'm like, well, I'm not showing up every day with the intention of putting the best possible nutrients in my body. And so this has been an ever-evolving thing, as I was kind of alluding to earlier. It's like every step you get a little bit closer, it's like you realize, okay, well, this is more so what I want, not so much this. But you have to do that through acting, through taking action on things on a continuous basis moving forward. So, and that's the same thing with wealth. So when I, 4 years ago, and I used that kind of, because that's really when my life,
an integral piece.
Absolutely.
Life, right? Yeah.
And so my life kind of opened up, and I saw what's possible, and I meet awesome people like you. I'm like, wait a minute, all of this, anything that I want, I can do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, right. That's it. Go do it. So for the wealth piece, since then we've started investing in real estate. We have a few different companies, and now we're moving on into the facilitation piece, and through Leaf. And that's the most invigorating thing for me, not just from the wealth piece, But that ties into the relationships piece, because I have a belief that I think if we change our companies, then the companies go into the communities that they serve and change the communities.
Yeah.
If we help get the people engaged and involved in the business, that's going to carry forward through the community, because as we all know, if you help yourself and you put your oxygen mask on first, it's easier to help others.
Yeah.
And so the wealth piece and the relationships piece, honestly, we're at a point in our life that when I set the goal 4 years ago that when I'm 35, I don't want to be doing anything that I don't want to do, because that's my version of retiring, is I just don't want to do anything that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so when I set that, I'm like, how the heck am I going to do that? And it's really came to fruition. I mean, we'll at the end of this year, we'll have 100% of our expenses covered by our investments. And I'm every day in relationships with people that by design, like, I want to work with this specific clients that give me life. And at the beginning of this year, I said, I want to have 80% life-giving conversations and 20%, whatever the opposite of life-giving conversations is, with the goal of 100% life-giving conversations, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's like I love that you say that, because it truly is. It's whatever you decide it to be. And then, just again, since that time that you walked in that door into One Life as your kind of integral moment, that marker in time, that 4 years ago, and then all of the abundance and the change and the inspiration and the giving and the living life fully has occurred.
Yeah.
And then coming from that space of how am I going to do it? Well, really, it didn't matter how you were going to do it. You just had to live into your why.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Yes.
And it comes truer every day, right? I think, like, what's your big why is one of the toughest questions for me to answer. And I think it's just at the heart of the question is a really powerful answer. But if you really look at the point of the question, it's like, what do you do what you do for? And sometimes for me, answering that question is easier than answering the why question.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I struggle with the why behind things. Probably because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be 100% honest with myself, so I'll just answer the what question. That's
But the what is, but the way that you word it, it is why.
Yes.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Whichever way makes sense. And I have a question here from Rel. He's asking, what's the one challenging event that occurred in your life that pushed you to transform in being who you are today?
Well, Rel, is that right?
Rel, yeah. Rel, yep.
Rel, I totally appreciate that. That's a really awesome formulated question. I have had many instances in my life where I kind of, where I have went from whoever it is that I was before to a different person. And each time there's a specific trigger, like he's talking about. And the most recent one was I saw a picture of myself on a boat, probably 5 years ago. And I was at my heaviest I've ever been physically. I've always been a big guy. I was like 6 foot tall as a 6th grader. So, it's like everybody look at the big kid. I got made fun of a lot when I was younger. And so that's for the first 5 years in business, all I wanted to do was make more money than everybody that I went to grade school, middle school with, so that I could, if I saw them on the street, this is like the weird stuff we make up in our heads, right? I'm like, but if I see them on the street, I want to be able to know I make more money than them. And it sounds so stupid, right? But it's the fuel that started what's now a very genuine journey. Mm-hmm. And so what pushed me to transform my life into who I am becoming more of every day, it was this picture. I was sitting down on a boat and with my shirt off, and I had a beer in my hand. And I looked at it. I saw it as soon as it got taken. This was in a time in my life where I don't think I was consciously avoiding getting my picture taken, but I was definitely not like, hey, take my picture. And I saw that picture and I was like, I can't do that anymore. That's not the person I want to live in alignment with. And I didn't have that verbiage at the time, but that's what was going on. Mm-hmm. It was the mirror that I needed, because I react, some people are like, if you've ever heard the carrot and the stick, if you hold the carrot out in front of you and you kind of run towards that, or somebody whacks you with a stick on the back end, I respond more to the stick. Because I'm really good at the carrot thing. I'm like, well, tomorrow is going to be really awesome. So we'll go to that.
Yeah.
But when you hold something up in front of yourself, especially and for me, it just shows up in a physical format, because that's how I look at myself from the physical standpoint, mm-hmm. is sometimes how I interpret my inner thought process. That may be right or wrong. I don't know. But that's what pushed me over the edge to go, well, look, I don't know what to do, but I have to try something. Because I had just went through what was almost a foreclosure on a house that I bought when I was 20 at the time. And Lindsay and I had just gotten married. And it was like, we were on this real shaky foundation of like, now we live in a tiny house, and we, it's just it's amazing story of like, I bought this house to rent, and Lindsay, my wife, walks in and she's like, I think we should redesign this house we're standing in right now and live here. I'm like, this is a really small house. It's been the best thing ever in our lives, because it gave us space to ask some of these questions and to go, you know what? I want to work with people who give me life and I give them life. I don't want to make a decision on whether I work with someone based off of the financial outcome that I'm going to produce for them or they're going to produce for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that was, but Rel, to answer your question, that was the event that pushed me over to transform myself. I think everybody has a little bit different event, but that's one of many transformations that I've put together. Some a lot more eloquent than others.
Thank you for being vulnerable and for, really sharing with the audience where you're coming from. And yes, like, a lot of us, middle school was the most horrible time.
It was awful.
You could not pay me enough money to go back and do that again.
1,000%.
But again, it's also this space in our life that we reflect back on and think, man, all the things I thought of for survival. Mm. And then how does that trickle and run? How does that run your life? And then once you get into that space, once you walk into that door, like you did when you did at One Life, and really start on that journey of that roadmap that we talk about with dreaming it, planning it, and living it, is, okay, I can design whatever I want. Let's take a peek at what's running my fuel now so that I can choose what runs my fuel in the future. Mm. And so that's, again, just another awesome example of what transformation and what value and what amazing friendships and leveling up you've received from this world, this whole live it, dream it, planet world.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say? So for someone who has never been to One Life, what would you say with someone who's interested or maybe wants to know a little bit more? What would you advise?
Probably the biggest, the hardest thing, in my opinion, with One Life is to experience it without going to it. Does that make sense? So it's, you can't embrace everything, all of the thoughts, all of the mission, all of the pieces that go into the puzzle that's One Life, right, as the organization, and the idea, more important, right, that you can dream, plan, and live your life. There's no way better than at the conference. Mm-hmm. Because at the conference you see, everybody at any point in time is in the dream, plan, and live category. Everybody's spending more time in one of those categories. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't be dreaming and living at the same time with much success of, one side always beats out the other. You can't even that out. So that's the best. So I always learn from like watching. So I'll go and I'll watch kind of the surroundings, and I'm like, okay, so this is how this person's acting and reacting, and I look at everything in how you show up. Mm-hmm. And I am working every day more so to be better at showing up in the way that seems more congruent with how I feel inside. And so through that, the One Life event is the single best place to get all of those categories filled in your bucket, and you can see exactly how all that plays out, in my opinion. And I've been to, we spend a ton of money on personal development every year. We go to a lot of conferences. We're starting to host conferences. So I go to a lot of stuff, but the culture inside the One Life event is different than anything I've really ever been to. And I know that sounds like a big promise, and I'd probably look at it very skeptical, if I'm being honest. Like if I heard that and I'd never been to a One Life event, never been exposed to it really, but it's like, just try it. And the worst thing that could happen is you go there and you get inspired to do something. Or, I have this belief that when you say yes to something, you are opening yourself up to a breakthrough. You just don't know where it's going to come yet. So it could come on the way to the event, and you're like, oh my gosh, I had this interaction with somebody, and like, we're going to start a business together, and it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Or it could come during the event, or it could come at lunch at the event.
Right.
But there is, when you show up in this expectant mind that, my life's gonna be changed from being there or doing this thing, then it's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy, just like we all know.
Yes. So just so overall, like just what I did, I took a leap of faith, and I went on John Vroman's recommendation, showed up, and my life has not been the same since. So yeah, I met you there, and we've been on this journey together, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. So yes. I'm grateful.
Yes. Likewise. Yeah. And the reality is that most of that wouldn't have transpired, right? So without that, and now you're speaking at, and I hear your speech and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to learn to talk better. Because you're so great at it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's just the abundance of this, amazing community.
Yes.
And that's the cool thing that you touched on is that you have no idea who you're going to meet. You
Hmm.
have no idea, as you start to dream it and plan it and live it, you learn how to dream again. You
Yeah.
learn how to really lean into what anything's possible.
Hmm.
Therefore, you're in the environment where you can meet anyone who's possible and map that out. And so it's been just an amazing and yeah, amazing journey that seems like I'm just living a dream, which I am.
Dude,
Yeah,
every day. Yeah.
right. Every
And not
day.
not every day is great, right? But every day is like, crap, I get to do this today. This is pretty
Right?
cool.
Yeah. So everybody's got to get their butt to one life because that's like exactly where it's at. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 1,000%. And it's just the I don't think there's another place that is as genuine and as open and authentic of a place, at least that I've found, especially for the relatively low cost
Right?
to go.
Yes.
I mean,
It's amazing.
your ROI is very high.
And it doesn't hurt to be in California either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot warmer than it is in Indiana here right
Yes. So what did you think about that, Hector?
This was a
So
fantastic conversation, Casey. I appreciate you taking some time, and it's a testament to your willingness to take action. Both in that moment where you reached out to Mike. Obviously, you had an opportunity to say no and not come to the conference on his recommendation, but you showed up, and when you showed up, you continue to show up, and I think that I want to honor you for that because I think that's the defining factor, and not everybody makes that decision.
now. I appreciate that.
he showed up after he showed up. Quote from Julian Bradley.
I love it.
Yes.
Rel wanted to thank you guys for that answer. He gave some exclamations on the live stream. And those of you guys who are catching this, if you made it this far through the conversation, we thank you for your time and spending some time with us. If you want to obviously come hang out with the One Life community, we have our annual conference this October. It's going to be in sunny Southern California, which is in October, which is always a nice treat. And so you'll get to hang out with me and Carolyn and the rest of the One Life community. And tickets actually go up in 2 days on Wednesday. So if you're catching this live or semi-live, then go get your tickets and don't pay more because it doesn't make any sense. But it's going to be the best conference yet. We've got over 30 presenters. There's going to be a ton of breakouts, benefit concert. Kids are welcome. It's going to be a really, really exciting experience. So, Casey, I know you are on Facebook, so if people want to catch you on Facebook, you're on Facebook. You have a wonderful display of that mustache in your profile. I appreciate it.
Right.
Mine never makes it that long. I always end up just picking out the strays. But get connected with Casey on Facebook. He's there in the One Life community as well. And obviously, Carolyn, you have some cool things going on. So if you want to share a little bit about that as well, we can do that. What do you think? You want to talk a little about Fierce Academy?
Yeah, for sure. So that aligns right along with our Dream It and Plan It and Live It is our Fierce Academy, who's actually coming out May 1st. So I'm super uber excited about that. I'll be able to provide some fierce content to our audience around how to live a fierce life, what fierce stands for, which is embodying your ferocity, which is taking what different things, like you mentioned, Casey, those things that might be from 8th grade that was driving you or what drives you now, and taking that as a fuel in order to push you forward into what that next thing is. And so I help entrepreneurs, I help women, I help all different types of people from all different walks of life, and I help them move into their next level of ferocity. And so that's coming out in May 1st. It's a 4-week course, and you also get access to my fierce community. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
That'll be fun because
That's awesome.
You don't normally give, there's not normally an access to you, or there's no other program where people can hang out with you on a regular basis. So that in and of itself is a huge value. Anything else before we sign off today, guys? I know we hit on a lot of stuff, and this was great, full of wonderful sound bites. So is there anything else before we sign off for today?
We have a Bourbon and Breakthroughs event in Louisville in October. I'll get the dates, but I should probably know those. October 6th and 7th, I think it is. But yeah, it should be very cool for anybody that leads a team of 3 or more to come to. But it's an event where we're gathering about 50 entrepreneurs from around the country. Going to drink some very good bourbon afterwards, but during do some real heavy lifting on creating their business through through looking at the best of what got them there today, and then casting the vision out to the future, and bringing all of their people in together to create that conversation. So
And I think that's the weekend before the conference, so you guys can go get bourboned up and then get live the next week. So that'll be fun.
You can just fly Louisville out to Hector. Where's the conference at this year?
It's in Long Beach, about half
Long
hour.
Beach, that's right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Louisville, straight flight to LA, and then down to Long Beach.
I love it. All right, guys. Thank you guys for being with us today. We hope you have an amazing day and keep dreaming, planning, and living it. We'll see.